I've said before, it's farmers versus Starmers. This is the UK now. Farmers are tied to the land. They live on the same land for generations. They're inherently, that you could call them de facto nationalists, versus the anywhere man, the Davos man of Labour, the atomised man who's more of a globalist, doesn't care about the nation. They're bound to be at odds.
Is Starmer a coward with no backbone? Well, based on recent events, it would seem so. Starmer messed with the wrong crowd this time, and now he's afraid of the consequences. The new budget was a nightmare, especially for farmers. Starmer tried to make their lives miserable, and they're furious over it. One thing's for sure, Sir Kier will either be forced to back down or resign, because the farmers are not ready to take no for an answer. Not when Labour tried to take their livelihood away from them. At a recent Labour conference, Starmer was forced to run away from the farmers, with his tail between his legs.
But in a Welsh accent.
Yeah, well, it's Starmer. Starmer fled like a rat as angry farmers besieged Welsh Labour conference. Not just a rat, but a flipping rat. He said he was running out the door like a flipping rat. Exactly. And people are calling it disrespectful. Now, a Labour source has said it's just his car was out the back there, whereas his car was parked. So of course
out the back.
Yeah. Of course he didn't flee the throng of angry farmers with literal pitchforks.
He's not a wimp. He's brave.
The farmers had Starmer surrounded and were demanding answers. Sir Kier surely didn't expect to be questioned on his ridiculous actions and decisions, and was completely scared. He ran away making excuses, and the government tried to cover it up. Why did the supposed leader of Britain make such a stupid decision that he's even scared to face the people whose life he's ruining? Some argue that Starmer was simply out of touch, but there's a much more sinister agenda at play here, and one of the Labour ministers accidentally revealed it. You wouldn't believe how evil their intentions are and how far they're willing to go. Labour pretended to be the champion of working class people just to completely turn on them.
I've said before, it's farmers versus Starmers. This is the UK now. Farmers are tied to the land. They live on the same land for generations. They're inherently, that you could call them de facto nationalists, versus the anywhere man, the Davos man of Labour, the atomised man who's more of a globalist, doesn't care about the nation. They're bound to be at odds.
It's not a good look for anyone, let alone the Prime Minister, to run away like a rat, but really he had no choice. The farmers are angry, and it has become Starmer versus farmers. They're intent on either getting this tax policy reversed or bringing down the entire Labour government in the process. Labour tried to take their livelihoods from them, and it's not really surprising. This is what Labour does, and they've done it time and time again.
Here's the point. The point is this, is that's how politics work. Politics work is you take money from the people who didn't vote for you and give them to the people who did vote for you. And this is, and what is this about? This is like what the left does. The left are, I mean, I don't want to call them murderers because that sounds too direct.
Are they trying to punish the people who didn't vote for them? Or do they have a hidden plan behind all of this? Whether you voted for Starmer or not, you're being punished by this horrible government because they have no clue what to do. They're only concerned with their ideological agenda of socialism that not only hates the wealthy, but generally aims to make life miserable for everyone. The biased media reporting has never been clearer. Labour sources are lying and understating the problem to make it seem like everything's good. And the way things are going, we might be looking at some very real and serious consequences that can potentially starve a lot of people.
Anybody who wants, basically, by not giving them £300, some people will die according to their own statistics.
When they were in opposition.
Yeah. And who are these people? Who are farmers? Are there many black farmers? Are there Indian farmers? There aren't that many. They're mostly white guys.
We've seen these double standards regularly now. Typical two-tier Kier. Labour was out to get the pensioners, cutting their fuel allowance despite knowing how many people they would potentially kill. In fact, they had an entire report that detailed the potential death toll of scrapping the fuel allowance of many pensioners. A lot of our seniors will freeze this winter, and we've the Labour Party to blame. Now, they're gunning for the farmers. Isn't it curious that almost all of Labour's broken policies make life more miserable for white British nationals? All the while, minority groups continue to enjoy preferential treatment in the form of lenient laws and countless welfare benefits. They can afford to pay for illegal immigrants but not provide relief to farmers.
But the real thing here is that there's a massive discrepancy between how many people this is going to affect. Whitehall is saying it's going to be 28%, and Rural Affairs figures saying it could be as high as 66% of farmers. So that seems to be part of the issue here. Also, Labour would say that they're doing it because there's a loophole where rich people can buy land, say they're farmers, and use that to not have to pay an inheritance.
So who's telling the truth? Things are definitely not looking in Starmer's favour, given how he ran away from the furious farmers and has been known to lie multiple times in the past. What's more concerning is how big the gap between the two estimates is. Does the media think we're stupid? Well, they're certainly behaving like it. These politicians use them as tools to spread false narratives, and Labour is exceptionally good at it. However, things don't always go as planned for them, since Labour is used to messing up too. In a recent interview, a Labour minister accidentally slipped up and revealed their nasty intentions for the farmers. Not only are they trying to ruin farmer lives, they're trying to crush them.
What Margaret Thatcher did to the miners.
So just to be clear, John, you would, what, beat them up?
No, close them. I mean, there's an industry we could do without.
So, okay, all right, so this got weird. So you would do to farmers what Margaret Thatcher did to miners, which was, and you know, she used very heavy-handed police tactics, followed by what? Putting them out of business.
If people are so upset that they want to go on the streets and spray slurry on them, then we don't need the small farmers.
How evil do you have to be to suggest something that extreme? Make no mistake, they do want to force the farmers into submission and will use the full force of the law. In fact, they're already doing what they can to stop the farmers from protesting. Britain has slowly turned into a socialist nightmare, and the common Brits will pay the price for it. What happened to those pledges that Starmer was making before the elections? Wasn't he rambling on about no rise in taxes and helping the working class? That turned out to be a lie. No wonder the people are turning their backs on this new government. Farmers especially are ready to show Starmer the serious consequences of messing with them. Was this just provocation, or was there truth behind this minister's words?
Now, anyone that watches GB News regularly will know that John McTernan can be deliberately provocative, and we love him for that mischief. But on this occasion, he seemed to maybe unwittingly crystallise just why Labour appear to be punishing farmers by changing inheritance tax rules. To be fair, McTernan was speaking for himself and not the Labour Party, which was confirmed today by Keir Starmer when challenged by our very own Chris Hope.
Nobody in their right mind would make appalling comments like that just to provoke people. It seems rather evident that he unknowingly revealed Labour's true intentions, and now they're trying to cover it up. You might be wondering what Starmer had to say about those disgusting remarks. Let's just say it's typical Starmer behavior of denial and lying. We've seen this happen before, and he'll keep doing it. No wonder he was terrified to face the angry farmers. You've got to hand it to him though. It takes a special kind of talent to lie to millions of people like that. Is he just tone deaf?
£5 billion of our budget over the next 2 years into farming. That is really important for our farmers, and I will do everything I can to support them, because I think it's essential that they not only prosper, but prosper well into the future. So I totally disagree with those comments.
What is he talking about? He's saying one thing and doing the polar opposite.
Quite a lot of promises he made before the elections, and each and every single one of them is being broken before our very eyes. Starmer has the nerve to say that they're investing $5 billion in the farming sector and thinks he should be applauded for that. You won't even believe the way some ministers are trying to justify it. Some are even saying that the farmers are overreacting. Who's gonna tell Sir Genius Kier that your investment is worth nothing if there aren't any farmers left? We're looking at a potential food crisis, the way farmers are threatening to not only protest, but boycott supply till Starmer finds the courage to face them. But the Labour leader says one thing and does the opposite. Will this strategy help him stay in government for long enough, or will he be forced to resign?
It is a step too far. The question that nobody from Labour seems bothered to answer is, where are we going to get healthy, local, British-grown food if farmers can't survive this pressure? Punishing farmers is going down badly with both the political left and right, and the only people who will be happy are the massive corporations who will buy up all of the farmland and probably...
Labour claimed that they're ramping up these taxes on farms because rich corporations use them as a loophole to buy massive chunks of land and avoid paying tax over it. Understandable motivations, right? But the method they've chosen is simply punishing the farmers, and it's the middle-class, everyday Brit who's suffering, and more will suffer. Right now, it's the farmers, soon it'll be you, because the prices of produce will skyrocket. Meanwhile, Labour's excuses get more and more out of touch with reality.
Chip went missing last night. But let's have a reality check. The farmers and their supporters, their reaction to the inheritance tax changes has been hysterical, over the top, and not grounded in the facts. If you look at the reality of the situation...
Are the farmers overeating, or has Labour lost their minds? It's hard to tell whose side the government is on by each passing day, and at this rate, things are only going to get worse. Starmer is already struggling to show his face to the farmers, running away like a scared kitten. Will he be able to face the rest of the British public that is waking up to their nonsense? Ask yourself if any of these make sense, burdening people with an outrageous amount of taxes and then expecting them to pay up and thank the government for it. On top of all that, the farmers have to keep up with the growing inflation as well.
We've seen the farmers now being attacked on what helps them in terms of fertiliser. We're having changes in the rules which will increase the prices of fertiliser. We're looking at energy costs which are going to hammer them because we're now going to put wind farms. And some of those landowners that you're talking about, some of those big landowners are the ones who are looking at the price that they get to rent the land at £500 an acre from a farmer, but they'll get £1,200 an acre from those who are solar panels. And that's why they're turfing out these people. And the solar panels, where are they getting the money from? Taxpayers. Well, it's a subsidy to put farmers out of business.
Is this an attack on farmers? The evidence seems rather clear, and the facts are not looking good for Starmer and the Labour Party. Think of all the massive costs a farmer has to bear to run a farm. There's energy bills, massive equipment and fertiliser costs, the unpaid labour, and that's just to name a few. Who's going to benefit from this targeted Labour attack on the farmers? The answer is rather clear, and to make matters worse, we're subsidising it with our taxpayer money. Everyone with any common sense regards this move as utter stupidity. Even Boris Johnson had some scathing remarks for Starmer on his recent actions. And guess what? He can't keep running away from all of it. People are waking up to their lies and they have no defence for it.
I would do what the government said they were going to do when they were promising this country the sun and the moon, that all their plans had been fully costed for, and they were bashing the Tories for taxing us more than any other generation in history. And guess what? They did. They quadrupled that. So I'm sorry. They have lied. They have lied to the British public. They have lied. And I'll tell you what I would do. I would stick to my promise. That's what I would do. No, that's what they promised.
Every Labour spokesperson completely crumbles under pressure and makes a fool out of their policies. They act tough, pretending to be righteous, but the reality couldn't be further away from the truth. This socialist government is dedicated to ruining this country, and Starmer is trying to do it with pride. But what do the farmers have to say about all of this? How mad are they? Many of them are making serious threats to the government, and even more are out in the streets to protest. The stress alone has significantly impacted the health of our people, especially the farmers, and some are even considering drastic measures.
The former Prime Minister Boris Johnson has hit out at the government's changes to the inheritance tax rates for farms.
In an exclusive interview with GB News, he's called the changes absolutely mad.
It's a really, really dumb thing to do. You know, we are struggling. I mean,
not the protest. I'm assuming the inheritance.
No, the inheritance tax thing. You know, it is. We're struggling to keep people on the land to make sure that farmers are incentivised to hand over their business to their descendants. I think it's mad.
Boris Johnson had many flaws, but even he's owning Starmer right now. How long will Sir Kier keep running till he finally faces accountability? The protests are in full swing, but it's only going to get worse. The government has a knack for being stubborn and doubling down on their horrid schemes, even when they know that they're wrong. The farmers aren't backing down either. The chair of the British Farming Union had some very concerning things to reveal.
Ridsdale fears for its future.
We came here in 1960, and it's been our lifetime looking after stock, our own cattle and now these bed and breakfast ones. And working the land. It could all go now with this new budget. It's a nice life, really, that's working outside all the time. But will the younger generation want to continue? My grandchildren? Doubtful.
At this rate, there will be no farmers left and all of the land will be sold to mega corporations. But maybe this was their plan altogether. Could it be that Starmer has sold out to these super rich companies who want to exploit the farmers? It certainly wouldn't be the first time that Starmer has received expensive gifts in return for favours. The lack of transparency and Starmer's cowardice is appalling. The vast majority of people are calling out Rachel Reeves too. She's been accused of many things, being clueless is just one of them.
You know, we're going to have to push back at this and we're not going to cooperate. And they're starting to say, well, are we going to take the sewage sludge? Something like 85% of all the sewage solids go back to farmland. So farmers are saying, well, you know, if you're not going to help us, we're not going to help you. And I can see that that is only going to get worse.
Of course they're going to push back. What else did Starmer expect? But think of the consequences that this will bring. Farmers not cooperating could lead to countless issues. Your groceries will cost more as a result of this, and the prices are already high enough in this inflated economy. This might be the most nasty policy decision that Starmer's government has taken, and that's really saying something. Don't forget that these same people have decided to leave the elderly to freeze, are soft on crime, and utterly incompetent. And what's all of this worth? How much more revenue will the government raise from these taxes? Not nearly enough.
The former Labour Minister for Europe, Denis McShane. Look, this is being described by many as a divisive and nasty tax move by the Chancellor, who has very little understanding of the countryside. I mean, how can you defend it?
Rachel Reeves and Kier Starmer are way out of their depth. They have no idea what they're doing, and every action that they've taken has reflected that. Not only is Starmer an incompetent leader who goes back on his word, he runs away like a coward instead of explaining his actions. This might be the reason why his approval ratings are in the gutter and only plummeting further. Will Starmer get to complete his term as the Prime Minister, or are things looking over for this Labour government? But no, the ministers are still trying to defend it. Apparently the farmers are supposed to be grateful for the tax and happily accept it.
Two husband and wife, both in their name, that's 2 million exempt from tax. And then if your house is also part of the farm, you put that into the package, that's another 1 million that's exempt from inheritance tax. Then you've got 10 years to pay it. I mean, I know a lot of small businessmen who would love to have 10 years in which they could pay off the tax they owe.
Tone deaf, out of touch, delusional, there's many things that you could call Starmer and his gang. Apparently farmers live a luxurious life. They get too many tax breaks and now they deserve to be punished for it. The numbers simply do not add up, and it's only making Starmer look more ridiculous than he already is.
Is actually not going after those super wealthy landowners like him, like James Dyson, who've been using this as a loophole to pass on their huge wealth to their children without having to pay tax. Actually, what it's going to do is affect those farmers in the middle who have frankly been completely shafted and whose descendants cannot afford the sort of bill that this is going to be imposing on them. And it's all just to raise 520 million a year by 2030, which is peanuts.
Starmer has spent billions on useless projects, not just in Britain, but all around the world. That's right, your taxpayer money being thrown mindlessly. And then they complain about not having enough public finances and burden us with more taxes. This whole debacle will only generate a measly few millions, but at what cost? Is the livelihood of countless farmers a justifiable price to pay? For the vast majority of the farmers, the answer is no. They are standing up for their rights and they deserve your support. Be their voice by spreading their message, liking the video, and subscribing to the channel.